Hello and welcome to the Tech Guy Zone. I'm Oliver, I'm the Tech Guy, and I'm very happy you switch on my channel here. So I do these videos because I want to share with you my know-how, and I also want to encourage everyone on, watching YouTube. I'm sure you have a lot of ideas in design and 3D printing and whatever, just bring it online, just share it with other people. I think this is a very good thing, and this also encourages people to think more about things and to maybe think small little differences can make often very big impacts, right? So yeah, that's why we are here. Now today, this is my third my Ender3 is changing into something else. It's my third video of my Ender3-v2 Reengineered series. And today I'm going to introduce you my new X-axis installation and C-axis belt fix. So let's look in the construction we are going to change. You see here the two belts, and you also see how the belt is fixed here. And these are the new parts. This is the two of those U-shaped parts in order to hold each side the axis, which is here, as well as the rail slider, which is in here, which you don't see right now. And here you see the slider, yes. On this side, so this is a setup. The slider is not exactly the height, but this is just the height of the rail and the slider. I just did this in order to construct those parts in the right way. And now what I also changed from my old design, as you saw on the old design, the motors are on both sides. So I thought maybe it's better to balance it a little bit. I keep my Bowden extruder, as I mentioned before, and I changed the motor of the X-axis drive to the other side of the X-axis to have it more balanced, to have on one side the Bowden extruder motor and on the other side the X-axis drive motor. I thought it's maybe better to do it like this. So in order to do it like this, I also need to change the whole tensioner and stop for the X-axis. This is a new stop. This is my new tensioner. And I have printed those parts, and beside here you see this is the Bowden extruder motor holder. The design is done in a way that this extruder can also go to, now it only moves this part, but just to show you, it can also go to the right side. If you want to keep both motors on one side, you can easily do that without changing anything in the design. Or if you want to turn it around, I don't know, maybe your intake for the filament is on the other side of your printer, you can easily flip this thing around. I did this actually, so this is not showing my original. I designed it like this, yes, but it's flippable, so I have put it in a way that this part is 180 degrees flipped on the other side, and these parts are flipped to this side. By the way, you also see here the C-axis double belt drive. Thank you to Kevin Akasam, how to speak that. But thank you very much. I really, I really love that people bringing those ideas up. And for example, I watch those videos, and many people do, and we get maybe other ideas, have some small things to change. So I made it a bit simpler. I thought like, okay, maybe we just take 2 belts, we don't do anything on top, and we drive them directly in the same way as we drive the Y and the X belt. I also drive in the same way the C belts. So I have constructed here a motor holder, which is a very simple plate. I think actually you don't need to print this part. It's just, I think this plate would be stable enough. But I just printed it with this. It doesn't really add the stability because this plate is pressuring against an L shape of profile, so this is fully okay. And here comes the motor in, and here on top I have designed 2 top holders which just hold the existing, I'm using currently the existing tensioner of the Ender3, which is in the original design used for the Y-axis and the X-axis. So the inner part I just installed here on those holders, which I print. And then I add here, there are two clips which are screwed in here, 1 and 2, and those clips hold my C belt, and here on top I have this screw sitting from the tensioner from the Y and X drive, and they are, so those screws can be manually used to tension both sides of the drive. So it's a very simple design. There are only those 4 parts required. Each side has 2 parts, and of course now with my new design for holding the X-axis, here are those clamps. These parts are holding the belt directly. So let's get it installed. So I have installed these sides here, left and right. Here is where my X-axis motor will be. On this side will be my Bowden extruder motor. So now I show you around on the other side. So this is where I fixed the C belt drive. This is very simple. These are all printed parts, and here on top you see the original Ender3 tensioner, and here on the bottom you see this motor holder. Now here is a slider. We have those 4 screws connected to the slider, and these big parts are 2 sides, such a kind of U shape, and I connect them with these bigger screws. The screws are longer here because I need to attach the motor for the extruder. Let's get the X-axis attached. Oh, by the way, because I'm not using a separate motor driver, I'm using still the board where both C motors are connected. It's not an optimum solution, but you see something cool here. Maybe you know this, but just to let you know, there is no connection here between those. Okay, when I decouple, when I remove the connector of one motor, I can easily slide this up and down, but when I connect the other motor together, magic! So the energy gets transmitted to the other motor, it moves both down. It needs a little bit of force, but it's pretty good. So now the idea is here, you see that to install this axis, everything install it from the outside. So I don't need to have screws from the backside, which was the original design, which was, I did not like that kind of design. So let's get this fixed. I also want to have it straight to this one, as these hanging mechanisms are very accurate as they are printed. I just hang this in and I balance it with a little bit of force, and then I can nicely screw this together. So this is fixed. Now I'm going to add my extruder part. I'm going to put some distance nuts here in between. And then I'm going to add my motor holder, and then I add the top nuts here. Actually, the design is, I try to keep this very simple. And I will put everything on my webpage. You can find then all of the required screw length and the required parts, and of course the printed, the print files. So as we screw a little bit, it's fine. I know I should use another tool, but I have this now on hand. It's okay. I can manage that. So, but I'm anyway going to add my damper here. This is fine with it. I'm going to put the connector to this side because you have a little bit of material which is falling down from here because the filament is coming from this side. So take care that it's better to have these connections to the other side. So this is done, this part is finished. This is my new end stop, is going to sit here. And the distance ring, can center it a little. So put it through. Screw this a little, and then I need to have my new X stop put here on top. Maybe I connect it first. Something like this, and it goes here. So now we are getting the motor back for the X-axis. So now we are putting the rail in. We need to be here is the first. I want to align this nicely. So, good. Now I'm going to center this. Okay. Now we are adding the missing part. So this this is my change. I will let you know, I will do some printing, I will give you some feedback on this, but I think it's pretty cool. This was the re-engineered version of my X-axis. Now I'd like to give you a quick information about why 2 weeks ago my design did not work. First of all, my original design, as I showed you before, was bending a little bit, so this was not very useful, right? But I had another issue because I use 2 motors for the belt drive, one left, one right, and they are driven by the same driver. So to say, I don't use the board I'm using, doesn't have separate drivers for the C-axis motors, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I also wouldn't say it's a very good thing. How can I describe that? I think it would be better to separate it, and I'm working on this. But I don't want to buy a new board right away, so I think I keep this for now and see where it goes. I mean, look, this is I'm printing these kind of things in ABS, and the result is actually my results are really, really, really good. Yeah. So I keep it right now like this. But the issue was that this was my original cable of one side of one motor. Now the thing is that first of all, this cable is very long, right? The other cable is very short. And now, first of all, I don't think it's very useful to do this. The second issue is that the cable was broken, not 100%. Now it's totally broken here, but it was broken a little bit. So the connection of this cable was not very good. And now we drive pretty high currents through these motors. The thing was that now after I changed the design suddenly, because maybe I touched this cable and maybe it got even more loose and maybe some more wire broke in there. And then it could not drive 100% the second motor anymore. And then we have this long cable on that side, and we have now this more evenly distributed motors, one for the X drive on the left side, one for the Bowden extruder on the right side, or the other way around, whatever how you look at it. But it added more weight to that one motor on that one side. It's more balanced, right? But if this motor is not driven very well out of a connection issue, then I ran in issues, and I was struggling to find that because it did not work, like not at all. It's just sometimes every 5 millimeter height the one motor did not step, and then it started to get right away in trouble because ABS needs a very, very well balanced printing surface. So beside that, let's get these cables open, right? I mean, it doesn't really matter. Beside that, I do not understand why they use for this motor, these motors came with these stupid cables. The original Ender cables are thicker. Yeah, these cables are not useful. You need to take care with which cables your motor is incoming. First of all, this is aluminum. Beside the fact that it's light, and if you make a 500 kilometer cable, it's maybe maybe lighter. I don't know. But for driving motors, this makes no sense. So and the diameter of this cable is just not useful, right? So I'm going to change these not very useful cables into nice cables. I added those already here. And I make these cables now for both sides of the motor the same length. So I really want to have a copper, 100% copper cable, no aluminum cable. This is not useful. A little bit thicker, so I use here 0.3 millimeter now in diameter. And I make them the same length. And of course I need to take care that the connections are really, really good. And that's it. And the other thing what also was what I figured out, that in my original in the original Ender design, and if you add a motor there, be careful, because the original motor, I think in Marlin the software is driving the C-axis motor with like 500 milliampere, and it's enough if you have a not belt drive and the original drive with a lead screw, because the lead screw is holding it very good, but the issue is it switches down just to hold the power, I think a certain amount of percentage of half. And the whole setup for two motors on a belt drive C-axis is just not right. It needs to drive, because both motors get driven on my board through one driver, and so you need to higher this level of current a little bit, and you also need to change maybe the division factor if to hold the C-axis, because it might also not be enough to hold it. The current might not be enough. So check this on your printer. That's a hint. It took a little bit time for me to figure it out and to put those glues together, especially if you change something on the especially, you know, especially I changed something, I changed the x-axis, and then suddenly it stopped working, right? And the axis is also connected somehow to my seat belt, and I thought it came from there, but it was not the case. So that's why it was a bit tricky to find. So that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed my video. Please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm very happy to see your comments.